Hi, welcome to the Fancy Crow's first virtual workshop. I'm Sherry and today we're going to be making a deco mesh ruffle wreath, just a basic wreath. For your materials, you'll need one roll of some type of deco mesh or fabric mesh and an additional 60 inches off of a second roll. You'll also need 42 inches of ribbon. I've chosen 5 different ribbons, so I have 5 different rolls. For your base, you'll be using a wire wreath form. I like the kind that has 3 circular rows. I like it to not be the flat one. Your mesh lays better if it is in a graduated wreath form. This one is 16 inches in diameter. That will make a 24-inch deco mesh wreath, which is the standard size for a deco mesh wreath. You also need 21 chenille stems and a zip tie. The zip tie is for a hanger, so if you prefer to use an additional chenille stem and no zip tie for the hanger, that works as well. For your tools, a yardstick is very handy. Ruler is a must-have. I also like a nice flat heavy ruler to help me with my measuring and with holding the deco mesh down. Masking tape to mark off your measuring sections. A pair of scissors is necessary. Rotary cutter is not necessary, but it's nice. You can cut the deco mesh with the rotary cutter. Makes your job go a little quicker. If you have a rotary cutter, I would not use the same blade that you use with fabric. The mesh will dull the rotary cutter blade a lot quicker than fabric does. I also have a small pair of wire cutters that has a side cut on it to cut my wire ties, makes things easier. Bottle of water just for weight. You'll see what we'll do with that in just a minute. So let's get started, and the first step will be to tie on our chenille stems. I've cleared my mat and I'm ready to do the first step, which is putting the chenille stems on my wreath form. I'm going to start by showing you how to tie them on. We're going to be tying them on the inside and the outside rings. So I'll start with the inside and show you how to tie it on. I just put it on the inside ring. I take it so that it is about an inch or so longer on one side than the other. They're uneven. I twist it one time. I like it to be tight on the rings. I bring that long edge underneath and pull it around, and then I'm going to twist them again just below that ring. You see how it's just below that ring. I don't want it on the edge of the ring. That's going to help keep your mesh from falling into or rolling into the middle of the wreath. I also like to come around. You don't have to. I think it's fine if you don't, but then pulling it and twisting it. We just want the chenille stems to be tight, not move on their own. They're always going to move, but we want to be able to move them. So I'm going to show you that one more time. Put it on the ring that you're doing. I'm doing the inside ring. I make it a little bit longer on one side than the other, about an inch. I twist it tight and bring that long edge underneath. Bring it up to meet the shorter side, pulling tight just below that ring. I'm also going to bring it down and twist it one more time just to make it tight. And I'm going to finish putting the chenille stems on and then come back and talk to you about placement. So don't put your stems on just now. Wait until I get finished so that you can see where to place them. When we do the outside edge, we're going to do the very same way. We're going to take that long edge, take it on to the middle, twist, not quite to the edge of it, closer to that outside ring, and make it tight. So let me go ahead and put the rest of my stems on, and I will save one more on the outside edge to do, and we'll talk about placement. Then you can start placing your chenille stems on your wreath form. I've tied all but one of my chenille stems on, so I want to talk to you about patterns. When I tie my chenille stems on, I start on the outside ring, and each section, so the two uprights, this creates a section. Each section on the outside ring has 2 chenille stems. Then on the inside ring, there's a pattern. There are 2 chenille stems, 1 chenille stem, 2 chenille stems, 1 chenille stem, 2 chenille stems. So this one needs 2. And I left that for the last so I can talk to you about where to put it. Let's look at the other ones that I've done. On this one that has 2 chenille stems, I have one in the middle, and each of them, the ones that are by themselves, a single stem has one in the middle. So everyone has one in the middle. But then the ones where the inside ring has 2 in the middle, you're going to choose whether your extra chenille stem is going to go to the left or the right. And so this is on the left. All of my chenille stems that have 2, the extra one that's not in the middle goes on the left. So there's 1. This one should have 2, and my extra one will go on the left. And since I'm doing the inside ring, I do that one. They are about 1 inch apart, not even. I take the long one and bring it underneath, pull them together, and I make it tight and slightly below that inside ring. On the outside ring, I start on the outside ring the same way, make them uneven, bring the long one underneath, and I tie that one fairly close to the outside ring. So let's check our pattern. I always check it before I go ahead and start. So I have 2, 1 on the left, 1, 2, 1 on the left, 1, 2 with 1 on the left, 1, and I am ready to start. So if you're working along with me, right now is the time to pause and put your chenille stems on your wreath. When we come back, we will be cutting ribbon. Let's start cutting ribbon. So I'm going to take my ribbon and a ruler. I need 42 pieces of ribbon, each 12 inches long. So I have 5 ribbons. So 42 divided by 5 is 8 plus 2 left over. So I'm going to cut 8 of each color, and then I'll need to cut 2 more pieces of ribbon. And I like to wait till my wreath is done to cut those. I may, if there's one that I know I really like and I'm going to want an extra one, I'll cut that. So, but I'm going to cut 8, and then I'll know I need to cut 2 more when I'm done. Sometimes the ribbon has those little wires coming out the end. It starts to pull out. I just cut them off. I lay my ribbon on my ruler, lay it at the end, and then I just go around that ruler with the ribbon 8 times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then I'm going to cut it off at about that 12-inch mark from the roll. And I stick my scissors in where the ruler is, and I just cut that end. Stick it in where the ruler is, cut that end, and then I have my colors of ribbon. I usually do my colors of ribbon, I stack them up in their color with light colors together, and then when I'm done cutting my ribbon, I go ahead and I cut the ends of them. To cut the ends of my ribbon, I do need, I like to have something to just cut those edges in. You can snip them onto your table and sweep them up later. whatever works for you. To do that, I cut the ribbon in half, or I fold the ribbon in half, not cut it, fold it in half, and then I fold it in half long ways. And I'm going to cut from the folded edge to the wire edge with my scissors. Be sure to go folded edge to wire edge at the raw edge of your ribbon. If you don't, your ribbon will be ruined. So I go down about an inch. I like a nice deep cut. That's a personal preference. I try, if I can, to make one cut. Now, while I have it in my hand, this is optional, and I didn't have a lighter on the materials list, but I like to use a lighter to singe the edges. If your wreath is going outside and it's going to be in a high traffic area where it's going to get bumped, you don't want those ends of your ribbon to fray. So I just take a lighter and run it across 2 or 3 times, and it will singe that edge. You can even feel that there's a little ridge there. Now make sure that your ribbon is polyester or nylon. If it is cotton or some other natural fabric, you do not want to singe it. Those will burn. I always like to have a glass of water, or water source somewhere close by, so that if something goes haywire, I can ignite anything. I've never had a problem. Some of your metallic ribbons, they'll have a little bit of a flame up, but it burns right out, and it's not huge. Now, if you're a little bit of a fire baby like I used to be, and you don't want to use this, you don't have to. I know a lot of people that don't singe their ribbons. Once again, I'm going to keep those in their colors together. Keep light colors together, and I'm going to finish doing the ribbon and singeing them. This is a good time for you, if you're working along with me, to pause the video. Let me show you one thing. So those ribbons are a little bit fluffy at the end. I don't know if you can see that fluffy there, but when you singe them, that fluff kind of melts back and goes away. So I'll keep cutting and singeing, and you cut your ribbons, and we'll meet back for the next part. Now I'm ready to cut my deco mesh. I've gotten out my ruler, and I want to cut a full roll of 20 inches plus 3 more pieces of 20-inch sheet sections. So I lay my ruler down. Even though I'm using my gridded mat, I like to still use my ruler and lay down tape. And I lay down a piece of tape at the 0 end of my yardstick. And since they need to be 20 inches, I'm going to lay another piece of tape at my 20-inch section. And that way I know where to cut. I just have a standard practice where I cut in between the 2 sections of tape that I have. So I'm going to take my deco mesh and I'm going to put it at the end, and I'm going to use a water bottle to hold it, and I will use my yardstick to hold the other end so that it doesn't roll. And I'm going to cut along the lines. Yeah, you might not be able to see it on the camera, but it's a little bit wavy. I'm going to try and follow that line as much as possible. That helps keep it from fraying. So even though I'm sort of not following the lines on the mat, I'm following the lines on the mesh. That will keep it from fraying. So that's how I'm going to do it. If I am using scissors, I'm going to follow those lines, 20 inches. And I'll lay that water bottle so it doesn't roll up. If I am not using scissors and I'm using my rotary cutter, I'm not going to worry about following those lines quite as much. My mesh might fray a little bit, but I'm gonna stretch it so that it's pretty straight. I want to make it perpendicular. I want to make it straight so that it doesn't ravel as much, and then I can just come across and cut. And as you can see, it's pretty well. Let's look at that. It's pretty well done. I'll have a few pieces that will come off, but not many. It works pretty well. I try and take my mesh and lay it over something. You can leave it rolled up and have it in a pile, or you can roll it over something so that you have a stack of it, whichever you prefer. So I'm going to go ahead and cut my mesh into 20-inch pieces. You're going to cut a full roll, 20-inch pieces. If you have a piece left over and it's close to 20, say 15 inches, you might need that for your last one. And then cut 3 more pieces, 3 60-inch pieces, or 3 20-inch pieces to make 60 inches off of your second roll. So go ahead, perfect time to start pausing the video and cut your mesh, and then we'll be ready to assemble it in just a few moments. I'm almost ready to assemble my wreath. So I have my ribbons all cut and singed. I have my deco mesh cut. I'm going to sort my ribbons. I try to put my ribbons on so that not too many like ribbons are as close to each other, or I put them as far away as I can. So before I assemble that, I stack my ribbons so that I can just take the ribbons and not think about the pattern. So I'm going to look at my ribbons, and I want to think about where I might want them to go on my wreath. Like, I probably don't want these two together. So I'm going to separate them. And I think I'm going to move this one over here because it has a purple border. This has a pink border. I mean a yellow border. This is real yellow. This is real yellow. So I'm going to switch that back over here. And I think that's how I'm going to assemble them. Now I could get real fancy and take, because I'm going to be putting 2 together on the wreath, so I could get real fancy and take these 2, these 2, those 2, these 2, but I'm not. I'm going to just go ahead and take 1 of each. You think about how you want yours to look. You think about what pattern you want. But as I'm taking them, then I will be able to just take them off my wreath, or off the stack, and not have to think about the pattern much. I'll still look at it and maybe make some changes, but this way I know they're pretty mixed up as I go through and assemble my wreath. So I'm just taking one, and then the next, and the next, and the next, and I'm going to keep doing that and get ready to put my wreath together. I'll be right back. It's time to assemble our wreath. So I just have this ruler here so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to take a roll or a piece of my 20-inch deco mesh, and I'm going to either roll it or fold it, or a combination of both, until I don't see that rough edge anymore. Then I hold it in the middle, and I take 2 fingers and walk, 2 more fingers and walk, like let your fingers do the walking in the yellow pages is what the tutorial I saw. I don't remember who, otherwise I give them credit. And when I get to the end where I think I'm going to need to roll again, then, or fold, sometimes folding is easier because those edges go under. And then I have that little bit more, I just pull it together. So I have what looks like a butterfly. I'm going to take that butterfly, and it doesn't matter if you put it in this way or this way, either way works. I'm going to start on my outside edge. That's going to make it easier. I'm going to put mine in with my rolls underneath. I take my chenille stems, and if you notice, I have all my chenille stems so that the insides are pointing to the insides, the outside are pointing to the outsides. That's going to help me find them. Sometimes when you get a lot of mesh on there, it gets tricky. So I'm going to pull this, and I'm going to take, and I'm going to pull opposite sides as tight as I can, and then I'm going to hold it and grasp with the opposite hand so I can pull it and twist. I'm going to twist a couple of times, not a lot, because I'm ready to put my ribbon on now too. So I have my ribbon all stacked up, and my first 2 stacks, actually I'm going to take, are these 2. I'm going to take them, I'm not going to make a plus sign, I'm going to make a crisscross. So make it a crisscross, and I'm going to push up in the middle and fold it. I like my raw edges to be down. I'm going to put it in that chenille stem and do the very same thing, crisscross my hands so I can twist it as tight as I can. That's the key, tight as I can. at least 3, maybe 4 times. And I can fluff as I go. I don't have to. It's kind of nice to fluff as you go. You'll have to do it again, but it keeps your wreath looking nice. Now, since this is an outside edge, I really do want to encourage my ribbons to go to the outside edge. And I want the ribbon tails to have alternating patterns. So this one is egg, stripe, and I'm just going to train them to go to the outside edge. That way they'll show. There's not a reason for them to be in here. These are going to move around as we work on the wreath. Let me do another one so you can see that, putting it together. Now, you don't have to lay it out flat. I usually don't. I'm doing this so you can see what I'm doing. I'll do one more where I don't do that, but I'm going to fold it. And I want these rolls to be as little as possible, but don't work too hard to make them tight. That's not that big of a deal. I just want them to be where the raw edges are hidden. And then I hold it with 2 hands. Walk, 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 and roll. And I didn't leave quite enough that time, so I'm going to let it loose and squish them together. Place it in, pull tight, hold it down and crisscross my hand, so grab it with the opposite hand so I can pull really tight, and then twist. And I only really need to twist once there because I'm going to put these ribbons right on. Once again, I'm doing an X, not a Y. Don't want them too close together, but I do want it an X. Push up in the middle, down on the sides. Put it in there. Going to pull opposite sides so it's really tight. I want it very tight. Do at least 3 or 4 times. Now, if I think I'm going to put something in here, I leave that sticking out. I know I'm not, especially on the outside edge. So I'm going to just twist them up, fold them, and tuck them behind. When I get ready to fluff, I'm going to fluff up so you can't even see that chenille stem. And I didn't do that with the last one, but I will. Now I have a tip for some of the people who might have some dexterity issues. If you have some dexterity issues holding all that deco mesh, if you will get a clothespin. Well, I'm going to put this back here so that you can see what I'm doing again. Roll it, walk it, and when I get to where I want to stop walking it, I'm going to take my clothespin and just pin it, and that way that leaves both my hands to roll this one where I want it, and then I just smush it together and it's ready to go. I'm going to continue to fill in the outside edge of my deco mesh onto the wreath, and then I'm going to do the inside edge of my deco mesh and ribbons on the wreath, and then I'll come back and talk to you when it's all done. So if you are working along with me and want to go ahead and start putting your mesh on, and then we'll talk about how to put the hanger. We'll talk about all the finishing touches when we return. Okay, I finished my wreath. I know you can't see the whole thing, but I'm going to leave it kind of close up so you can watch as I fluff. So I have a hole here, and I'm going to just cover that up and pull the mesh so that it covers it. So I want to make sure I don't have any other holes. Sometimes that happens, and that's okay. Then you're going to take your ribbons after you cover your holes. You might do that all along. You might see them develop as you're working. But then you're going to take your ribbons and you're going to pull up. Like I grab it at the base where it's tied. I pull up in the middle to fluff them up so that they are not showing any tails that I see that I've neglected to secure. I put those back, and I make sure all the ribbons are going the way I want them. Sometimes it's overwhelming to look at it. There's lots of tips and tricks to help you. The ones I use are to hang it on the wall, definitely, and fluff it on the wall. Since I'm solo, no cameraman, I'm not going to do that right now. I will when I turn the camera off before we do our final segment. But you just go ahead and you fluff those ribbons up and put that deco mesh where you want it. And I've had people say that walking away, well no, I say walking away and coming back to it, you can see things that you couldn't see if you just were working on it. So walk away, get a cup of coffee, drink a tea, whatever suits your fancy, and then come back. Or what really works for me is going to bed and then getting up the next morning and looking at it. I had a client tell me that they take a picture of it, and I've tried that. That works. Taking a picture of it makes all the difference in the world. When I go back and look at this video, I'm going to say, oh, I should have fluffed there. So those are some tips and tricks. So fluff up your wreath, get it ready. We're going to go ahead. When I'm done, I also go through and I look on the back to see if I have any places that I've missed. That kind of helps you to be able to see if you're missing anything. Want to show you how to put that hanger on. Now this wreath, because it doesn't have anything on it, is there's no definite top or bottom. Some of them have a definite top or bottom. When I do my top or my bottom, I go ahead and find one of these uprights. I'm sure that's a technical word, I don't know what it is. Take my wire tie, slide it in there, and let it click probably 3 times. Let me turn it the right way. There we go. So it's going to click 1, 2, 3. This is where I have my side cutters. Regular scissors really do work. This cuts just a little closer. Cut it off. I usually turn it that way and sort of press it so it goes that way. It's ready to hang on the wall. I can fluff it, or I can add embellishments, so we'll talk about that another time. But there's the general how to make a deco mesh wreath. I want to show you some other wreaths that are made this same way, this same pattern, and they look very different. So let me go ahead and show those to you before we close. Here's our finished deco mesh ruffle ribbon wreath. It's a ruffle wreath because the deco mesh is ruffled, and then we put ribbons on top of it. I want to show you some other wreaths that are made with this very same ruffle technique. So the watermelon wreath is made with the same technique, different mesh, different type of mesh, and it has a sign in the center. Our flamingo wreath is made with the same type of mesh and has that welcome sign that's a little off center. And then we have another wreath made with this same technique that has not only the ribbons, but it also has some cotton bolls placed in there and a bow on it. Makes it look different from the other wreaths. So you can do any of these wreaths. If you'd like to make one of these wreaths, go to thefancycrow.com and order a kit, or call the Fancy Crow. Numbers in the information below. And thank you for creating with me today. Have a great day.